after a couple of days, or maybe a day after the other game, what did you see out of the group? Watching it back on video, heading into Seattle here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought through much of the first half, especially, and probably through a good chunk of the second half, or so. I thought in general we were pretty comfortable. We weren't giving up much of anything. We were fairly organized. There's details in there that I surely can nitpick about, but they're a good team who's fast and powerful, and we knew they were going to play pretty direct, and so. Some of that was about dealing with first and second balls and the speed at which they could counter and stuff like that. But I thought, outside of the fact that the goals that we gave up, that we were pretty controlled about the game. We didn't create a ton of chances. Some of that, I think, was a product of when we get in our possessions, we get to the attacking half the field, we still, as a group, we still need to commit to the runs behind the back line and sometimes putting balls into some more dangerous areas. Even if that means that we don't successfully do that, we put the opposition under some pressure, and I felt like we tended to lean a little bit more towards just controlled possessions instead of really trying to turn our possession into a dangerous moment. And that's one thing I would have liked to see a little more in the, especially in stretches of the game. But defensively, in many of our sets, I thought we were pretty controlled. They were pretty predictable. We could control them. It came in moments where we lost possessions in our half the field, and then we would compound a mistake with other little mistakes that when you get a series of mistakes, then you give up goals that are kind of head scratching sometimes because it's a little bit too easy. And I felt like that, and we've talked about that a little bit in the past, is, it's normal for a player to occasionally make the mistake, but then there can't be a series of mistakes. Somewhere along the line, that chain of the next phases, we've got to close off the mistake. But we didn't do that on a couple of occasions, and it cost us goals. And I feel like that's something that we've got to look. We've just got to be mindful of it. We don't have a ton of time, so there's not like you can go hit the training grounds and really work through a lot of these things. It's just something that we've got to really be mindful of, and we need to finish more of our attacks, which means that we can get into the opposition's half maybe a little bit quicker, and transition with our passes forward sometimes is the other thing I would say. A lot of times we would recover balls, and then we would play backwards, and we put ourselves into a long possession when maybe we could have won the ball, played forward, and then attacked out of that a little bit quicker. So again, details, but I feel like we've scored goals in different ways. Our set piece goal scoring has certainly come up down the stretch. We've scored some in the run of plays, and the goal scoring piece has been there, but we've got to eliminate these moments, because I don't think it's large stretches. It's just these moments in the game where we concede, where you seemingly feel like you're in control and then you're out of control in a split second, and we don't have a window of forgiveness for ourselves anymore. After the first 10 games where we really had a hard time picking up points that we didn't get, we left ourselves with a small window of sort of forgiveness in some of these things.
Some of those problems due to Ricky just not being there in the game there? Or?
Yeah, look, some of it is, there's no question that, when you talk about playing forward, when you talk about a guy who can pick up the ball, will play a ball through lines if he chooses to play the pass. He will look to play the ball through the lines in tighter windows and into that space where Douglas was. He'll play that pass more often. We were a little hesitant to play that pass over the course of the game, I thought, which kept us a little bit in that first phase of our possession and not really getting into that destabilization moment. So that's part of why I think we didn't finish as many attacks as maybe we would with a guy like Ricky. The second is Ricky's ability to pick up the ball and just eliminate the first defender on the move or on the dribble is a game-changing type of situation. But that's not the strength of Udi or Mark or Edwin or really any of the other guys that we put in. That's not their primary, that's not their strength. And so you 100% you miss out on a guy who can change the tempo of the game in a flash, whether that's on the dribble or just with a line-splitting pass that immediately gives you what we call a time edge on the other side of the midfield line. So the opposition's midfield line. So yeah, we missed them. There's no question about it, but we still managed to get 3 goals out of the night, and we still managed to give up 3.
Yeah. his status, like say day to day, is it more towards Saturday than Wednesday, or how do you see his recovery?
Yeah, I would say very, very questionable for Wednesday. I mean, we'll see how he trends over the next 24 hours or so. Very optimistic for Saturday, so we're going to see. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of margin here, so but at the same time, we need him to feel right and to be at the best position, and he needs to be at the best position he can to help the team.
Mark has been playing higher up the last couple games. How do you see his role sort of change without Ricky on the field there?
Yeah, we've done it in a couple games where we slid Ricky out to the outside once so that he could kind of pop into the gaps from a wide position. And then we did it the other day, and it was really kind of to help us and from a defensive posture from the front a little bit more, where he's working with our striker to help create more clarity on the defensive side for us sometimes. Again, I thought through large stretches of the game in those moments there was a fair amount of clarity. Like we made them play pretty predictable passes. So I thought it was okay. His strength in that position isn't going to be to do the things that Ricky does, which is, and so for him in that position is to try to give us some runs through the lines, to try to pick up balls between the lines and start an attack because he doesn't usually want to take 4 or 5 touches, but to speed up the game because he will play fast, he'll receive and play quickly. So I'd say it's not his primary comfort zone, but there were pieces of why we used him there that I think helped us out. We didn't. Again, I thought through stretches of the game until the last, say, 10, 15 minutes where we were, fairly controlled on the defensive side, except for when we lost some possessions in our half and didn't deal with things.
Status of Mavinga?
He came out and he went through the warm-up and he did some work on his own. So, again, I think he's questionable for Wednesday still, but hopefully trending to be available by the weekend. It's tough having these two games that are going to come right on top of each other. We're going to need everybody to try to get the results that we need.
You look at the table. Ninth place isn't far away. You're only 2 wins away there. What are your thoughts on how things are shaking up at the bottom there? There's still 4 or 5 teams for you to jump, but if I look in hindsight, I rue the moments where we gave away a couple here or there, which is always what happens at the end of a season. If you think 2 years ago, on goal differential, we didn't get into the playoffs on the last day, and then this year, there's certainly, when you go through the moments of 30 games, there's little opportunities where you feel like you could have picked up a couple more points with little this or little that, and it starts to show itself. As far as the last 4 games, again, I don't think we have a ton of margin in this. I think it's going to take an absolute minimum of 9, and then we're gonna really need some help. Some other teams are going to have to falter. I think 10 gives you a real shot. 12 for me is certainty. So, again, the margin is fine. As I said to the guys, look, we've only lost 2 games since May, the end of May. So we've shown resiliency. We've shown the capacity to get results. The key here is a good number of those have been some draws that and a few of those are draws that we'd like to be wins, and we've got to tighten the margins to make sure that we can turn anything that might look like a draw into a win. So that's where we're at right now with the final stretch. You haven't seen Seattle in a while since, I think it's been a while since you've seen Seattle. How you've seen them pick up things up lately here?
Yeah, for me, Seattle is always Seattle. Obviously, which players they have available to them based off of injury and availability, because they have some special players certainly inside of their group, and if they're all healthy, then they have a lot of maturity and experience, and they've played in big, tough games, and they're always difficult at home. But over the course of the season, they've been very stingy on the defensive side. I think they've only given up like 31 goals, which might lead the league, but they've scored 37, so they haven't had a ton, but they're a hard team to beat, especially at home. So for us, it's going to have to be, as almost as flawless of a game in terms of some of these key moments and key decisions as we can play. And then we've got to try to take our opportunities when we come. I don't see us getting a ton of chances, because I think they're a pretty durable, stable defensive team, and they're not going to expose themselves a lot. So we've got to take our chances when we get them, and we've got to be as clean as we've been all season on the defending side.
Thanks, Greg.
Yep, thank you.